Hey there, Stampers. My name is Sherry Roth. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Alberta, Canada, and I'm excited to be here today to share with you a scrapbook layout created using some of the leftover pieces from the August 2024 Time for Cake Paper Pumpkin Kit. So this project was designed for the APPT blog hop, which is a paper pumpkin thing, I believe is what the APPT stands for. And there is a bunch of additional inspiration. So to check out the other projects, make sure that you head to my blog post, which is linked in the description below, and then follow along to those additional blogs for additional inspiration using this fabulous kit. Okay, so today we're going to create a scrapbook layout, a single 12 by 12 scrapbook layout. I have scrapbooked with this kit and I created a 2-page spread, and I will link to where you can find that information in the description as well. And if you're not familiar with Paper Pumpkin, this is a monthly subscription kit. Every month we get something different. We get a little peek, but we never know exactly what's included in the kit. And it's usually cards, but occasionally it might be a 3D project or something else. And this month we got the supplies to create 9 cards. Everything that you need to create the projects is in the box, which is so great. But it's also fun to kind of step outside of that and play with the supplies that you get. So that's what I'm going to do today. So I'm going to go ahead and I will speed this up and I'll kind of talk you through what I'm doing. Okay, so here I'm basically just showing you kind of what the pieces that I have left and a little dish with the die cut elements. And I'm going to start with the packaging technique. So the way you do this is you smush some ink onto a piece of packaging and then spritz it with water until the ink starts to pool. You want some movement to the ink. And then I'm basically going to flip it over and I'm going to add ink kind of down the center of my layout. I'll flick off the extra ink and then I'm going to take a paper towel and just kind of sop up the rest, wipe my packaging so that I don't get ink all over the place, and I'll take my heat tool and give it a zap. This is a fun technique, especially if you use a lot of white background. It just adds just a lot of detail. It makes it feel kind of artistic. So I want to apologize for the lighting in this video. I have some natural light here and it's a cloudy day. So every time the clouds pass by, it kind of gets a little darker and then brighter and then darker. So I apologize for the lighting. All right, so here I took one of the card bases and I'm going to leave that full. I'm documenting 2 3x4 photos. And then I took that navy layer and just cut a couple 1-inch strips to tuck behind to give the illusion of one larger piece in behind that petal pink layer. Then I cut this card front in half. I'm just trimming it down so it's a little shorter, and I'm going to cut 2 more 1-inch pieces of the Moody Mauve part, and that's going to get tucked in behind the navy again. So it looks like I've got 2 longer pieces of pattern paper in behind that larger piece. And that's a trick that I often use with Paper Pumpkin kits. All right, so here I'm taking those strips, and my initial thought was to use them to kind of do like a little bit of detail above and below. So I'm staggering them. And then I had this other idea. I thought, oh, well, let's take some stamps and let's stamp in behind. So I'm using the words from the stamp set, Make a Wish, Celebrate, and It's Time for Cake. So I'm just getting those out. I'm also going to use the 2 smaller balloons that are in that stamp set. I'm just going to put them on some blocks here. And then I'm going to slide those strips of pattern paper aside. And I'm starting with some petal pink ink, and I'm going to stamp the Make a Wish. So you see, I'll slide this aside. I'm going to stamp it in a couple areas at the top and I believe 1 spot at the bottom, just to give a little bit more of a pattern, just a little bit of something extra, a little bit more detail to the white background. Now I'm taking the It's Time for Cake and I'm using some wild wheat ink. And I just want to make sure my layers are straight, so I stamp my word straight. And I'm going to stamp that a couple times, and then I'll bring in the word celebrate, and I'm going to stamp that with Moody Mauve in a few different areas. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in the larger of the two smaller balloons and use some Night of Navy. And I'm going to stamp that 4 times. And then I'll bring in the smaller balloon with some Moody Mauve ink and stamp that a couple times. And I think it turned out really cute. I really like that added stamped detail. So you'll see that I will bring back those strips because my initial thought was, oh, I'll just add the strips over top, but it looked far too busy. And it covered up too many of the stamped images. So I decided not to use those, but I decided to use a couple of them to just kind of tuck underneath where there was kind of a little bit more white space. So I hadn't stamped an image there or any wording, so I thought it would be perfect to kind of just tuck a couple of those, layer them, and then tuck them underneath. All right, now I'm going to check my little dish, and I'm kind of auditioning some different locations for those balloons. I had 3 of those die cut balloons left. I wanted to include all 3 of them, and I really like this spot in the lower right corner. And then I also pulled out a banner that I think I'll stamp on. I'm pulling out the twine, the rose gold twine that was in the kit, and I'm just using a dimensional on the back of each one of the balloons to hold the twine, and then I'm trimming it. And I'm going to do a little cluster of the 3 balloons there. And then I grabbed the stamp that says Happy Birthday. I'm going to ink that up with some navy and stamp that on the banner. That will eventually go on top of the balloon cluster. And now I'm going to grab a scrap piece of white and I'm going to stamp some candles. So there are 3 different sized candles in the stamp set. I stamped the middle size one twice with Moody Mauve and one of the long ones with Night of Navy. And then the flame is done with Wild Wheat. And I don't show that all on camera. And then I did fussy cut them because there's no die to cut that out. So I fussy cut those 3. And I'm going to tuck those in and use those as a little embellishment. But first we're going to adhere our balloon cluster. And then I'm going to turn this upside down and I want to tie those 3 strings together. So I'm just sliding a little bit more of that rose gold twine around. I'm going to tie a bow and then I'll trim the ends. And I love how that little balloon cluster turned out. So cute. All right, and then I'm just sliding a mini glue dot underneath that bow just to kind of hold it in place. And that's going to get some dimensionals on it, but I'm just going to leave it there for now. So these candles, I end up having to trim them down just because I wanted to put them up in the top left there, and they kind of kept hitting the adhesive that's behind the photo mat. So I had to trim them a little shorter, which is fine. And I'm just using a little dimensional to kind of pop them up. And I'm kind of staggering the height of them as well. All right, it's coming along here. So I'm having a look at this hooray, trying to figure out if I want to add that as a title. I'm also auditioning a place for journaling. I wanted to use that tag, but with the petal pink background and the petal pink tag, it felt like it was just too much petal pink. But you'll see what I end up doing to kind of make it pop a little bit more in a bit. Now I'm pulling out some opal rounds, which is a fabulous product that matches this kit perfectly because there's yellow, there's navy, and there's clear in there. So I really wanted to add some gems. So I'm adding a few of the white ones or clear ones, and then I added the yellow ones to the center of the flames. So I'm just repositioning these two here. All right, I'm thinking, what else does this need? You can always tell my fingers tap when that happens, when I'm thinking. So then I decide I had this circle on my desk. So I thought, okay, maybe we could use this as a journaling spot. I didn't like the way it looked. It felt a little bit too big. So I really want to include this petal pink label. And I thought, well, maybe if I back it with something. And I had this scrap of navy. This is from, I think it's left over from one of the card bases that I had cut apart. So I'm just using this tag as a template, and I'm just trimming around it so that I'd have another tag exactly the same size. And then I'll punch a hole using just a 1/8 inch handheld hole punch. I'm going to feed some of that twine through both holes, and then I'm going to kind of offset them. So then that petal pink is not sitting on top of the petal pink. There'll be a little bit of blue in the background. So once I figure out how I want them, I'm going to flip it over, use some dimensionals to kind of hold them in place, and then add that to the layout. And I think we're done. I really love how this layout turned out. It's so cute. So here's a little bit of a closer look. And make sure that you head on over to my blog. I will link the blog post so that you can hop along to see additional inspiration using this month's Paper Pumpkin kit. Thanks so much for watching.